This is a test. This is a test. Luke, I am your father.
So you see how the thing has a small font, right? So I fixed it in that computer this morning. And we came here and then it was like that. And so Mike fixed it and saved it. And then it's, I don't know if this is updated, but it might have literally not. So.
We'll deal with it.
Huh?
We'll deal with it.
But what you were saying about the updating.
Yeah. I completely forgot. I will just be pinched all the time.
Just read inside.
Good morning and welcome to Live Oak. Please rise in body or in spirit for our gathering hymn, number 38, Morning Has Broken.
Good morning and welcome, beloved community. I'm Reverend Joanna. In this sacred space, we gather as one, celebrating the tapestry of our diversity, honoring the boundless love that unites us all. Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church is unambiguously, unapologetically progressive, and our doors swing wide to embrace all who seek a welcoming place where we celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community, where we know that every identity is a divine expression of humanity, where we commit to the work of dismantling systemic racism and other oppressions, striving for a world where equity, compassion, and justice are the cornerstones of our shared existence. May our worship today be a source of inspiration, a wellspring of courage, and a call to action. Welcome, dear friends, to this place of love, acceptance, and progress.
My name is Apollo, and I want to give a special welcome to any visitors we have today, in person or online. If you haven't already, I encourage you to stop by our visitors table in the narthex after the service to sign up for our weekly email newsletter, and so we can meet you and answer any questions you may have. Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal faith. There are no doctrines you have to agree with in order to belong. Instead, we are held together by our covenant, our promises to each other in this church and within our religious tradition. Please join me in these words from our historic faith. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another. We unite with UU churches and around the world by lighting our flaming chalice, the symbol of our religion. Today, Nico will be lighting our chalice. Here and at home, we light it today with these words. The chalice we light today is a symbol of our faith. It binds us together as one people, a reminder that our strength is in our shared hope for the world, and that our common work is the creation of beloved community among ourselves and in the world. Today our reading is A House for Hope by Behrens and Parker. Progressive eschatology has the courage to hope for justice, peace, and sustainability in this world, the one we have been given. Too much conservative religion hopes only for pie in the sky by and by. Whether there is or is not a life after this one, none of us can say for certain. When encouraged toward the end to prepare for the next world, the great naturalist and progressive Henry David Thoreau is said to have replied, "One world at a time," and when asked if he had made his peace with God, "I wasn't aware that we had quarreled. I may not get there with you," Martin Luther King Jr. said in his final sermon, "but I have been to the mountaintop. I have seen the promised land." He met the promise of God's shalom, of peace born of justice, fulfilled in this life, not another. Thus ends our reading.
For the past 31 years, Live Oak has been a beacon of acceptance, love, and inclusivity in an area where our values often challenge the status quo. In a world where divisiveness and intolerance seem to grow stronger, we firmly believe in the transformative power of our faith and the positive impact that we are having in our area. We invite you to make a financial contribution to help sustain this church's vital work, knowing that every gift, large and small, is appreciated and carefully used in service to our mission. And if you would like to donate electronically, there's a card with a QR code in the seat back pockets. Let this time of offering be a reflection of our shared commitment to making a positive impact on the world and a reminder that our Unitarian Universalist values guide us, not only in our beliefs, but also in our actions. Thank you today for your presence and your contributions to our ongoing journey of building the beloved community here and in our wider parish. We'll build a land, bind up the broken. We'll build a land where captives go free. Where Christ is ours all morning. Oh, land of promised land that can be. Come build a land where all of God belong, anointed by love and peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace I wonder what could be in the Wonder Box. Is there someone that'd like to volunteer to find out what's in our box today?
I think your microphone's muted.
Uh-oh. Did you hear me?
Let's try. I wonder if the mic is on. I wonder what could be in our Wonder Box today. And Willow, would you like to come help me find out what's in the Wonder Box today? Come on up, friend. All right. Now this box is magic because just like our minds, it's full of so many possibilities, especially when we open it. Are you ready? Want to help? Come help. We're going to push, push, push. What's in there, Willow? Do you know what that is? Honey. Do you want to tell everybody? No. No? It's honey. Do you want to show everybody? You can just show them. Yeah, we have honey. So thank you so much, Willow. Let's put it back in the box. Are you ready? Yeah. I want to share. Uh-oh. Would you like to keep the honey? That's fine, too. Aw. Let's all take a deep breath. Sometimes life can be hard. Yeah. We love you, Willow. Thank you for helping. I really appreciate you. I want to share with you a tale today that comes from Thailand and Indonesia, and it's called A Drop of Honey. And that's why we had the honey in the box today. Thank you, Willow. So once upon a time, yesterday or today, or maybe tomorrow, there was a king and a prime minister on the second floor of a building overlooking their city. They were having honey and bread. Yum. The king was standing there, or sitting, let's say, and just looking out over his kingdom and was feeling so proud of how prosperous and beautiful his city was. And the prime minister noticed a single drop of honey go plop. And he was about to call a servant to have someone come and clean it up. And the king said, "Don't worry about it. It's not our problem." The prime minister was like, "Okay." And they continue to have honey and bread. And the prime minister is sitting there in the sun, and he watches the drip of honey heat up and slowly start running down the building, all the way down, down, down to the bottom. And then he notices that a lizard comes out. No, first, let's say, make it a bee. A bee goes bzzz. And what eats bees? Lizards. And the lizard jumped up and ate the bee. And you know what? When the lizard ran, the cat noticed the lizard, and the cat started chasing the lizard. Well, when the cat started chasing that lizard, the dog went after that cat. The woman that owned, the shopkeeper that owned the cat, was like, "Why is that dog beating up my cat? He's a bully." And the man who owned the dog said, "Why is that cat beating up my dog?" So the woman rushes out with a broom, and she's beating off the dog, and the man rushes out with a broom, and he's beating off the cat. And the prime minister looks down and says, and the king says, "Don't worry about it. It's not our problem." The prime minister says, "Okay." Now the people that supported the woman with the cat were like upset because she's getting beat up. And the people who supported the man were upset because he was getting beat up. Now all the people started going out into the street and started fighting. The prime minister looked at the king, and the king said, "Not our problem. The army will take care of it." Next thing you know, there was riots in the street. People are fighting, and they don't even actually know why at this point, because nobody actually noticed that drop of honey. Well, the next thing you know, the entire city has been burnt down. And the king and the prime minister are still standing in the same spot. And the prime minister looks at the king, and the king, with a broken heart, says, "Maybe that was our problem." So I wonder, have you ever seen something that was so small that you thought it's not your problem, that ended up affecting you in some way? Do you ever wonder how you could change things with just a drop of honey and make things better for people here, now, on earth? With that, our story is told.
Please rise as you are willing and able for hymn number 1017, Building a New Way.
We are building a new
They say in heaven, love comes first. We'll make heaven a place on earth. She perhaps did not know it when she was singing that. But Belinda Carlisle was describing the radically realized eschatology of Unitarian Universalism. Or maybe she knew. So this month we have been talking about eschatology. Eschatology is the branch of systematic theology that deals with the study of end things. What happens after the end of your life? What happens at the end of all existence? And so eschatology holds a lot of different ideas because we just can't know, right? This is what holds the things like the idea of reincarnation and karma, returning to oneness, annihilation, end of all existence, or end of personal existence at the end of your life. So many different ideas, and of course the ones in our culture that we are most familiar with: heaven, hell. For those who are Catholic or waiting in line at DPS, purgatory. Because Unitarian Universalism is non-creedal, we can, each of us, have really different ideas on this level of this unknown, of what happens at the end of all things or at the end of our lives. But when we look at the eschatology, the overall eschatology of modern Unitarian Universalism, I think that it is something that practically all you use would agree with. And that is this idea, as you heard in the reading, that whatever is to come, we simply cannot know for sure. And so our efforts, our time and our energy would be far better spent focusing on the here and now, and specifically focusing on the heavens and hells that exist in this time, trying to expand on the former and trying to minimize the latter. So in the book that the reading was from, and it's a book that you've heard a whole lot of this year, it's called A House for Hope. And it lays out the systematic theology of Unitarian Universalism. If you are wonky like me and have any interest in this, I highly recommend it. I know we have a copy in our library. And on this question of the eschatology of modern Unitarian Universalism, Rebecca Ann Parker, one of our preeminent theologians, breaks it down into three different categories: social gospel, universal salvation, and radically realized eschatology. And again, what I want to emphasize is, whereas earlier this month we were talking about the eschatology of the Unitarians and Universalists who came before us, like the Universalists with their belief in that there was a heaven and that at some point we would all be reconciled to that. This is dealing with where we are right now. So first of all, social gospel. Has anyone heard of social gospel before? So this is the idea that, and it comes to us from liberal and liberatory Christianity. And it has been a big influence on Unitarian Universalism. It's been a big influence on our world. It is the idea that what Jesus was doing was laying out a way to live life, laying out a way to bring heaven on earth for all people, rather than what many of you may have heard growing up, the fundamentalist idea that salvation is all about personal salvation, right? About being born again. This is the idea that the real purpose of religion is to try and make life as good as possible for as many people as is possible. And the idea was developed by a theologian named Walter Rauschenbusch. And he was a theologian. He was also a pastor in a German Baptist church in Hell's Kitchen. So he really got to see hell on earth. He got to see also how we can make efforts to help people get out of hell on earth. And he, for those of you who really love fiction, really love novels, and you feel like anyone here feels like your life has changed because of some novels that you have read, well, that was the same thing for Walter. Anyone here remember that whole WWJD thing? Like in the 90s, isn't that when it kind of, I know I was seeing a lot of kids wearing the bracelets, and they were interpreting, for the most part, what would Jesus do as being like, not dance, not drink, not do anything else. That's not where it comes from. So one of the big influences on old Walter was a novel called In His Steps, What Would Jesus Do? This came out in the late 1800s and by Charles Sheldon. And in it, and Charles Sheldon was a Congregationalist minister. And in this novel, there is a pastor who challenges his congregation to go a year where anytime they see someone in need, anytime they see a hell out in the world, they ask themselves, what would Jesus do? Again, not about drinking or smoking, but about helping those who have been most marginalized, helping those who are most in need. That's where it actually comes from, the late 1800s. Social gospel has continued to develop. When we are down at the Capitol and we are standing shoulder to shoulder with our liberal Christian friends, fighting against the terrible anti-trans legislation, fighting against the terrible anti-immigrant legislation, most likely they would say that one of their big influences has been the social gospel. And perhaps the person most well known as a student of the social gospel was Martin Luther King Jr. Even though Unitarian Universalism is not a Christian denomination, or as I often will say, not exclusively a Christian denomination, because we hold Christians also within our big tent. This whole social gospel has helped to shape what we see as the very purpose of our religion, and it has shaped our eschatology, because we know that hell exists on this plane of existence, right? We see it all the time. We see it in war, we see it in poverty, we see it in addiction and abuse. When we talk about loving the hell out of this world, this is part of what that's talking about, is identifying and acknowledging the hells that exist today, and then doing the work to try and remove people from those hells and try to eradicate the hells themselves. Now, the second part of our modern eschatology is universal salvation. Now, as we've talked about before, the early Universalists in the 1700s and the 1800s had this belief that God was love, and therefore all people eventually would be returned to that love, would be returned to God, and would go to heaven, as many of them, that's kind of the language that even then that they would use. Universalism kept expanding and developing, but this core idea that the dominant force in the world was love, and that we should take that into our own lives, is something that has survived today, even for those of us who do not believe in a heaven, do not even believe in God. And this has always been part of the thinking, even in Universalism in those earliest days. In the early 1800s, Hosea Ballou talked about how our beliefs shape our actions, because he could see it all around him, right? With the fire and brimstone hands, sinners in the hands of an angry God people. He noted that if people imagine a divisive and punishing God whose desire for justice is satisfied by the crucifixion of his own son, they will model themselves after this God and feel justified in being cruel themselves. I still see it today. What about you? Right? When we have politicians who identify themselves as being Christians, and yet they will separate families at the border. They will put razor blades on buoys. They will arrange for people to be pushed back into the Rio Grande to drown. I think we can draw a very clear line between eschatological belief and human action. So this is part of what we do. Part of what we do is take this, our roots in universalism. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the quote by Universalist Gordon McKeeman, who said that universalism believes that we are all going to wind up in the same place together, so we may as well learn how to get along right now. And so this continues to shape us. But the one that Belinda Carlisle, perhaps unknowingly, probably unknowingly, sings about is radically realized eschatology. This is the idea that not only does hell exist on this plane of existence, but heaven does too. And we get to experience it. We get to experience paradise in the here and now. As Rebecca Parker writes, to say paradise is accessible here and now is not to say that the world is perfect or that we should focus on the good and deny the evil and pain around and within us. The serpent lives in the garden, and paradise is a place of struggle, a place where suffering happens and where destructive systems that harm life have to be resisted. Here, though, is where the hand of comfort can be extended, the deep breath can be taken, and we can live at home in the world knowing this is enough. A sense of enough is critical now, because anxiety over not enough drives the exploitation and greed that threaten the Earth's ecosystems and put cultures and lives at risk around the globe. A radically realized eschatology means to take this idea that heaven can be on earth, right? That whole thing about heaven, on earth as it is in heaven, that with our efforts we can expand heaven to more and more people, but also that we get to experience it. On Facebook this week, I asked a pretty simple question, and I was amazed at how many people felt strongly enough to respond to it. And so I'm going to throw it out to you. This is not a rhetorical question. How or when do you experience heaven? Just give me a few answers. Heaven on earth. In nature. Singing in choir. With grandchildren. Driving around with my siblings. Dark sky at night. Coffee in the morning. Laughing with my family. Snacks? Yes. A nice bowl of soup. These experiences are where, with radically realized eschatology, we would say we get to experience heaven. And that doesn't mean denying that the hells exist. It also does not mean feeling guilt when we experience heaven, or feeling that somehow we have to wait and get rid of all of the hell until we can experience heaven, because that's not going to happen. And as far as we know, we only for sure get one life. How sad that would be to not get to experience paradise when it is at hand. And sometimes, and these two things are woven together as well, right? We don't want to admit it, but sometimes when we see someone else going through hell, it reminds us of the heaven that we are in. That's silly that we shouldn't. I mean, of course, we're not going to go tell the person, boy, I'm sorry you're in hell, but, my life is great. But we can admit it to ourselves. And I don't think that it's a bad thing, because we get to where we take things for granted, right? I mean, to me, what I think about is like if I have a terrible cold where I'm coughing all the time, all of a sudden, the just smooth breathing that I normally could do, I am no longer taking for granted. And I am saying, whenever I am done with this cough, I am never going to take breathing for granted again. It's okay to be reminded that we have heaven right in front of us, and sometimes we are not even realizing it. Clarence Skinner, back in 1915. Okay, let me tell you, Clarence Skinner was a Universalist minister and theologian and seminary professor, and he was profoundly influential on the Universalist movement and on the United States. And he says, we accept the world for the joyous place it was meant to be. We like it, despite the fact that belated theologians look upon it with inherited suspicion. The dominant motive, therefore, is no longer to escape from earthly existence, but to make earthly existence as abundant and happy as it can be made. Does privilege enter into this? Of course. We always have different privileges that allow us more or less heaven, and that is, I think, where we feel that call to try and even things up, to try and go into those hells and bring more people into paradise. And by the way, that can also apply to us, right? Because sometimes we are the ones who are in hell. Trying to balance those things, though, I think may be probably one of the biggest tasks of being a Unitarian Universalist. I love this quote by E.B. White. He says, it's hard to know when to respond to the seductiveness of the world and when to respond to its challenge. If the world were merely seductive, that would be easy. If it were merely challenging, that would be no problem. But I arise in the morning torn between the desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy the world. This makes it very hard to plan the day. I've also heard this paraphrased as, do you savor the world or do you save the world? Well, you do both, and they are interwoven. And when we savor the world, we are better equipped to go out and help save it. There are certain stories, like that we would call children's stories, but really they're for all of us, that in this church we repeat fairly often. Some may feel we repeat too often, and often Chris and I will say, boy, this story would be perfect this week, but we just told it 2 weeks ago. But it's because certain stories tell giant truths about who we are and what we value. And two of them are the starfish and the long-handled spoons, right? The starfish, that's that story about the little girl who comes on the beach and it's covered with all of these starfish, hundreds and hundreds that have washed up, and she is one by one throwing them back into the ocean, and someone says, you can't get them all in. You'll never make a difference. And she says, I made a difference to that one. It can feel overwhelming, all of the hells that are existing right now. And I think that this is part of what we have to continue to remind ourselves, right? That it makes a difference to that one. Maybe we are only taking a baby step, but we are taking a step. And in the story of the long-handled spoons, it's a afterlife story where you go into a room and you see this table loaded with delicious food, but all of the people around it look miserable. And that's because all that they have to serve themselves are these long-handed spoons that are so long they can't get the spoon to their mouths. And so in front of this banquet they are starving. And you go into the next room and it's the exact same picture, except that everyone is joyous and laughing and well fed, and that's because they have learned to feed each other. Hell exists here, and heaven exists here. And as she sang, heaven is where we make love the priority. They say in heaven, love comes first. We can make life heaven on earth. For those who don't know, she was just playing that song that she did not until this morning even know I was going to reference. By the way, for those who don't know, our accompanist, Daria, stage name Aria, has been very busy this week. What have you been busy doing?
Playing South by Southwest.
Playing South by. And now I invite you to take a deep breath and join me in a time of reflection in word and in silence. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. These are the words of Tess Bombinger. Let us make this earth a heaven right here, right now. Who knows what existences death will bring? Let us create a heaven here on earth where love and truth and justice reign. Let us welcome all at our pearly gates, our freedom table, amid singing and great rejoicing, with all our lovely colors, straight, gay, transgender, bisexual, and all the ways of loving each other's bodies. Young, old, fat, thin, variously abled, gentle, cranky, joyous, sorrowing. Let no one feel excluded. Let no one feel alone. May the rich let loose their wealth to rain upon the poor. May the poor share their riches with those too used to money. May we come to venerate the earth, our mother, and tend her with wisdom and compassion. May we make our earth an Eden, a paradise. May no one wish to leave her. May hate and warfare cease to clash in causes too old and tired to name: religion, nationalism, the false god of gold, deep-rooted ethnic hatreds. May these all disperse and wane. May we see each other's true selves. May we all dwell together in peace and joy and understanding. Let us make a heaven here on earth before it is too late. Let us make this earth a heaven for each other's sake. Let's hold that for a moment together in sacred stillness. Amen and blessed be. And would you please join me in singing? When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out I breathe out love. This community is a chosen village where our lives are interconnected. Part of the tapestry of this communal journey is sharing the significant milestones, joys, and sorrows in our lives and witnessing the diversity that we hold. One of us may be celebrating a life event while another is mourning a grief. And there's a beauty in that mosaic as we are reminded that these moments of life are transient and ever-changing. And today, Sophie shares, USICs have approved my travel documents so I can fly back to England and visit my family this summer. And Michael Inyart shares, continue to keep Rob Sarton and family in your thoughts. Rob has shown improvement over the past few days, so much so that the doctors have moved him off the neuro ICU floor at Del Seaton. Mickey shares, my brother is visiting and my other brother was sick for a while but is getting better. Cassie England shares, our beloved Uncle Jack died last week suddenly and we are grieving his loss. So sorry. And Julianne Knotts shares a joy, the healing power of music and connection with others, and the concerned family members who are hurting, may they find peace. May this community draw closer with our shared experiences as we celebrate life's triumphs and navigate its trials together. This week, if you are going through hell, may it be minimized. If you are going through hell, may there be someone who is willing simply to sit with you so that you do not feel alone. And this week, may all of us have our eyes open so that we can become more aware of all of the heaven that exists around us, so that we can greet the days with gratitude and celebrate this life that we have. As Henri Frederick Emile writes, life is short. We don't have much time to gladden the hearts of those who walk this way with us. So be swift to love and make haste to be kind. And may you know that you are lovable and loved.
Your invitation to the Faith Development Hour. We have many things going on today. First, I just want to say, pre-K through 5th are merging today because of illness and work schedules with our adults. So they will be in room 201 with Miss Harmony, and they will be doing a Pixar short called Day and Night and discussing on their level about pluralism of ideas and how we accept each other and how we move past our biases on their level. It's really going to be awesome. Also, our teens are in room 209. They'll be continuing with their mural painting. Our adults, we have, starting point is the final session today. And we will, if you're in the starting point program, we meet at 11:15 and we're going to start promptly. at 11:15. Our nursery is open until 12:30 today. Unless you need childcare for a starting point, just let the staff know. Also, for everybody else who is not in starting point, our adults, I want you to enjoy and engage in the tabletop discussions and the activities we have in the fellowship hall. This is an opportunity for you to go deeper into what our service was about today, for you to have deep discussion with other people, building community and building bonds with each other while exploring your own faith. And I hope that you will join us. Thank you.
Please join me in extinguishing our chalice with these words by Unitarian Universalist Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there's another truth. You are not alone. Let us leave this service with renewal in our spirit and a song in our heart. Please rise for number 1018, Come and Go With Me. It has been a gift to be together today. Please spend the next 5 minutes talking with someone you don't know. Members, be sure to introduce yourself to any first-time visitors we may have, and show them where the visitors' table and the coffee are. And may we all know the blessings of friendship.